Hi guys, today we're going to do a brief lesson on data collection vocabulary. And the I can statement we're working on is I can sample a population and make generalizations. We're specifically focusing on sampling a population and what does that mean and what are the terms involved. Well, before we get started with that, let's talk about 4 reasons we use to collect data. We collect data to describe or summarize, determine preferences or opinions, compare and contrast, or to generalize and make predictions. And we're going to talk a lot more about this in class, but let's talk about the terms we need to know before we could begin collecting data and describing the information we collect. Let's start with population. A population is all the members of a data collection group. Now this is going to change depending on what kind of information I want to collect. So a population could be all of the students at Indian Hill Middle School. Another example of a population could be all of the 6th grade students at Indian Hill Middle School. Now this may seem strange. How can all of the students and all of the 6th grade students both be examples of populations? Well, what if I wanted to conduct a survey to find out where the 6th grade students would like to go for their end of the year field trip? Well, to do this, my population that I'm concerned with is only the 6th grade students at Indian Hill Middle School. I'm not going to ask the 7th or 8th grade students because they're not going on the trip. Another example might be all of the girls in the 6th grade at Indian Hill Middle School. Now it's your turn. In the work section of your notes, give an example of a population. And keep in mind, throughout the rest of this lesson, you're going to be using that population to answer other questions or to actually give more examples in the work section of your WSQ. A sample is a part of a population. So if the population is Indian Hill Middle School, a sample might be just the 6th graders at Indian Hill Middle School. Now, I might only use a sample, or I might want to collect data from only a sample if my population is very big or it's too difficult to gather information from everyone involved. So, for example, if I don't have time to ask every person at Indian Hill Middle School a question or to collect information from them, I might only ask the 6th graders. Another example is if my population is the 6th graders at Indian Hill Middle School, I might take a sample by only surveying the 6th grade girls. Or to get a more unbiased result, I might ask every 5th person who walks in the door who is a 6th grader. Now it's your turn. Look back at the population you wrote in your work section. Give an example of a sample based on that population. So for example, if my population is Indian Hill Middle School, my sample might be the 6th graders at Indian Hill Middle School. A statistic is a measured characteristic of a sample. So once I've collected my data and I'm analyzing it, the statistic is what I've learned from it. Something I've gathered or collected about that population or from the sample. So if my population is the 6th graders at Indian Hill Middle School, my sample might be to survey only the 6th grade boys. And the statistic could be the percent, fraction, or number of 6th grade boys who play football. Another example, if my population was Indian Hill Middle School, I could sample only the girls at Indian Hill Middle School. And after collecting data on them, an example of a statistic could be the number of Indian Hill Middle School girls who are attending the football game on Friday. Now it's your turn. Look back at the work section of your WSQ. You've given an example of a population and a sample. Now give an example of a statistic that you could collect from that sample. You may have heard the term census before. We've all heard of the census that is taken every 10 years in the country. Because a census is a collection of data from every member of a population. Everyone needs to be surveyed or have data collected on them. And again, it depends on your population. So if my population is Indian Hill, or the residents of Indian Hill, my census might be to survey every person who lives in Indian Hill. If my population are the 6th grade students at Indian Hill Middle School, and I were to take a census, I would need to survey every 6th grader at Indian Hill Middle School. Now it's your turn again. Look back in the work section of your WSQ. You've given an example of a population, you've given an example of a sample of that population, and a statistic you could have collected on that sample. Now go back to that population and give an example of a census you might take from that population. A parameter is a measured characteristic of a population, so it's similar to a statistic, except for I'm not looking at the data from a sample, I'm looking at the data from the entire population, or I've collected the data from everyone. Let's look at an example. If my population is Indian Hill Middle School, I might ask every person in the school how many hours of sleep they get each night. My parameter would be the percent, fraction, or number of students who get 8 or more hours of sleep every night. Another example, if my population are the residents at Indian Hill, my census might be to ask every person in Indian Hill how many hours a day they watch TV. My parameter then would be the percent, fraction, or number of people in Indian Hill who watch 2 to 4 hours a day. Please excuse my typo there. Now it's your turn. Look back at your population. You've written an example of the sample of that population and a statistic you could have gotten from that population. Then you wrote an example of a census you could have taken on that population. Now give an example of a parameter you might have gotten from your census. We are done with this lesson. You can go back and watch this lesson or portions of it as many times as you need to. But don't forget to WSQ in your notes. The question you write can be one that you have or someone in the class may have after watching this video.